Tech Snippets Today with Joseph Raczynski.
All right, Anshul, thank you so much for being here today. We are at AI Expo in Washington, D.C. with Windsurf. Really looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
All right. First and foremost, yes. I'd love to hear a little bit about you and what led you down the path towards being one of the founders, correct?
Sure. Yeah, I'm part of the founding team at Windsurf. Joining the company actually was a pretty simple story for me. The two main co-founders, they're both childhood friends of mine, so I've known them for decades. And so it was one of those things where it's like, at some point you just want to work with friends.
Yeah.
And now having the opportunity to work with friends, building really great technology that's helping a lot of people, like you can't really wish for a whole lot of things better than that.
Right. Excellent. So can you give people a little bit better understanding of what the company does now, how it helps, I guess, enterprise, but also individuals building new tools?
Absolutely. So our real kind of core mission at Windsurf is how can we accelerate software development by 99%? That's the goal. We're not there yet.
Okay.
We have ways to go, but I think that's the core goal. And when I say software development by 99%, it's really like all software developers, right? We're not focused on a very specific kind of developer or anything like that. And we're not really constrained on should we help individual developers or enterprises or the government. Like wherever software development is being done, how can we make that happen 99% faster? And the real core essence of that comes down to software inherently is a value creation activity, right? It's very different than I say something like farming, where after a certain point we can't eat more food.
Yes.
We can always have more software.
Yes.
Right? And so I think from that perspective, if we can make software development faster, more secure, all of those pieces, then the opportunity cost of not investing more in software, building more, only gets higher, and then people will invest only more. This is like the general progressive technology. So that's really where we focus on. I mean, the really quick catching up to today kind of numbers is like we have over 1 million active users using the platform today, over thousands of enterprises, multiple agencies and contractors in the federal space. So really across the whole spectrum, we have customers and users, and there's a lot left to be done.
Yeah, no question. So one of the things that has come out recently, it's been probably 4 or 5 months at least, is vibe coding, right?
Yes.
This idea that people can actually create applications very quickly, very easily. I come from a background of developing different applications, mainly on the web side, but now I can go on and I can create whatever I want. One of the best examples that I saw recently was someone was frustrated with DocuSign.
Okay.
And so they're like, I hate this, I don't like this, it's not my favorite thing in the world. So one, it's expensive, two, it's a bit clunky. So they decided in 3 days, they built a production version of it, put it out for free.
Yeah.
DocuSign is a $15 billion company. So what they did was they created something from beginning to end in 3 days. They deployed it, people are able to use it. I'm not sure if it has total functionality of it, but that's what we're doing right now, which is unbelievable. So I'm assuming that people can do that with Windsurf, correct?
Yes, I think we may or may not have kicked that off to a little bit of things. So we introduced the Windsurf editor, the product, in November of last year. So it was about 6-7 months ago, and then a couple months later, vibe coding as like a general term came around. And so we were the first to kind of introduce, the term is overused, agentic.
Yes.
It's definitely overused, and it means something different for everyone else, but we were the first to really release a product, generally accessible, with an AI that can take multiple steps of reasoning by itself. Right? That was the really big paradigm shift.
Yes.
You went from like a ChatGPT style tools where you do an action, you get a response, and that's it. Now you had a system that can take multiple steps, think almost kind of like a human. And then we started hitting some of this new frontier of, I can actually just prompt and start building out prototypes and first versions at a rate that was even crazy even like half a year ago.
Unbelievable.
Right? And so, I think vibe coding, it's interesting. I think I can take this in a few different directions, right? I think in one sense, yes, the ability to create ideas and for subject domain experts to build applications themselves has never been easier.
Yes.
And I think this is going to be incredible, right? I think the best project managers, program managers of tomorrow will be the ones who prototype as opposed to writing PRDs.
Right.
But I also do think doesn't mean like software engineering by itself is dead, because take that example, for example, the DocuSign example, creating that MVP of all the core functionality, totally doable. Building in authentication, building in scalability, the database reliability, all those pieces, that's the next level. So I do think software developers, all those things, equally important, also can be done quicker now with these tools. But I think everything kind of gets shifted a little bit that direction, right? And so, it's never been easier to build software. And I think people's ideas, to that example, the DocuSign example, right? We've seen that internally ourselves. Like, before there was all these tools that no company would really build the tool because it doesn't really make sense to build a company around that tool.
Yes.
And so, and internally, companies didn't really build those tools because it didn't make sense to invest internally because that's not the end business outcome. And so you ended up having a lot of people buy really expensive B2B SaaS products for only like a subset of features.
Right. Right.
I think that era might be going away, where it's like, I need this one functionality. It takes me a day to spin it up. Let's spin it up and use it.
Right. No, I mean, it makes so much sense. It's easy to use, leverage, determine whether or not this is something viable, whatever the case is. One component that I'm curious to get your impressions on, at some point in time, yes, there's speculation there's going to be billions of agents, right, that are out there, that are interacting with each other, that are sort of semi-autonomous in a way, or autonomous depending on what level you're looking at. How are they going to be paid? How do you see, and by that I mean like, they're interacting with each other, maybe they have a wallet of some sort. How are they going to interact and pay each other? I
don't know if I know. I'll be just very, very honest, right? And I think that's like a general theme of our ethos as a company is that we have to be actually very adaptive of where we go. It's like I think we have some theses about how this world is going to look like. So for example, on just the agentic and how that's going, for example, right? I think we try to be very cognizant about what is the current frontier of this underlying tech. Because AI is not perfect. It makes lots of mistakes, it hallucinates still, that's all the case. So if we try to build a tool today that autonomously try to complete an entire task end to end, and talk to other agents, do all those things, I could create a really great demo and post it on social media, but I couldn't hand it over to an enterprise customer and have them trust it 99 out of 100 times it'll work. And if it doesn't work 99 out of 100 times, it just won't be used. And so the way that we've approached agents, which is kind of the way that I think most generally accessible agents are available today, is more this kind of collaborative feel. Still very human in the loop, right? In which case the human, to your earlier point, still owns the product, and so the questions of how do agents pay each other is a little less real for the current iteration. But I think like the way I think about it is that with a human in the loop, with time, we will start realizing what kinds of tasks can these agents do end to end without the human correcting it. And then those start becoming autonomous, and then we have to start figuring out, okay, what does that autonomous world look like?
Fair enough.
I think we are still a little ways away from there. As much as I'm a techno-optimist, I do think we have some ways to go. But yeah, I mean, it's a whole new world that we're going to live in.
So let me throw something out. Tell me if it makes any sense to you at all. So I've spent too much time, last 10 years in AI, before it was called AI and all this fun stuff. Also in crypto.
It was always AI.
But also blockchain crypto for over 10 years at this stage. To me, they're starting to synthesize in some ways. So potentially an agent could have its own digital wallet, right? Its own crypto wallet, micropayments, so that they're able to send each other payments for whatever it is. You give that agent a set amount of USDC, whatever it is, right? So dollar coin, to be able to then go out and do, I'd say, I want this to go out and book a trip for me, right? So the classic, I want to book a trip down to the Bahamas for X number of days at this class hotel. And it knows my personal preferences, all these things. It goes and does that, and it has a wallet already dedicated to itself that it runs. I see A16Z is working on some of these types of things right now. To me, it seems like the natural progression.
Yeah, I think fingerprinting of AI outputs and things like that are absolutely going to be a thing. I think it comes down to like, trust to the end of the day, right? That's really what it's all about. And obviously zero trust and everything from the crypto world is similar. I think trust is important, not just from like a verification, authenticity of actions, but if you just think about trust as a very core concept of how you build a tool, then a lot of generally like the right kind of paradigms come about, right? The idea of making collaborative agents. It wasn't that we couldn't build something autonomous. It's like, how do we get humans to trust what the AI is doing? Right. That is actually a very critical part of this whole thing. We are, and I'm here in DC because we're FedRAMP High authorized. We are IL5 authorized. We're like the only cutting edge AI code system that has those things. And those things, again, does it change the nature of the tech? No. But it's a trust question. Is it built securely? Can it handle sensitive data? Right? Like these are questions that aren't even about the AI's outputs, but are also equally important questions about trust. And so I think it is a very important thing to get right. And I think we want to be conscious about that. We do work with some of the largest organizations on the planet. And so maybe from a purely self-served reason, we need them to trust the AI because we need them to trust us. Right, and I think that's a really important piece.
Very well said. What's your quick take on open source versus closed source AI?
the more the merrier.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I think like there's a lot of value to open source, and I have a lot of respect for the Metas of the world and stuff that are really investing a lot of money into open source models. I think there's also a lot of value from closed source providers and what they're able to build and the data that they have and things like that, right? Like, so I think in my world, like, we're not a model company, so maybe this is just from my perspective, right? Like, we just want to provide the best products, and so we've always given model optionality to pretty much every frontier model that exists because, like, I don't think there is model supremacy today. I don't think there will be for a while.
Okay.
Just because unlike like software where it's like kind of cumulatively you build it, if you want to train a new model, you have to start from scratch again. So that's why you see all this like leapfrogging of model quality. So from my perspective, like open source versus closed source, I don't think I have a opinion of like if one's like more right than the other, or one's going to win over the other. I think it's just the more people that are working on these problems, it's general competition, right? It's going to be better, and the only people that are going to benefit are the end customer, which is great.
All right, no, that's fair. All right, maybe two more questions if I can, please. The first is, I've read a lot about it, but I want to make sure that it's confirmed or not, but I'm assuming that it is, that Windsurf was acquired by OpenAI.
I have nothing to comment on
all right,
that.
so it's not in the open, or it's not yet disclosed whether or not that happened.
We appreciate the publicity.
Okay, excellent. All right, good to know. Good to know. I just want to find out whether or not that was one or the other. The other part is, so what you were alluding to just a little while ago, and that is AGI. There's so many different definitions, and there's different interpretations about that, and understandings of where that may be or where we are along that sort of path. I'm a firm believer in exponential technology, have been since 2015. Peter Diamandis, Dr. Peter Diamandis out in San Francisco has been pushing these ideas, and now they're like front and center for everyone. Everyone's talking about it. But when you speak to most CEOs, you speak to most C-levels in this space, for the long period of time they've been basically saying, well, things are changing quickly, but we don't see this AGI coming for another 20, 30, 40 years. Some of that's changed. Eric Schmidt, who's going to be here speaking on the stage in about an hour or so, is now talking more and more about this. And he's got some concerns that basically he's saying, hey, as a society, we all need to gather around this and think about this as like on the level of nuclear weapons or environmental crisis. Like that should be among the things that we need to think about. I'm kind of curious, taking a step back from that, where do you see us along that path of AGI?
Yeah, I don't know exactly where we are towards the path of AGI. I used to work in the self-driving car industry, and we always used to joke that self-driving was coming next year, and we said that joke for 15 years. And it still coming. So I think as a human species, we are generally pretty bad at estimating technological improvements at times. So it's hard for me to like be like, yes, it's going to happen by 2029. I don't know, right? Like it's really hard for me to say that. What I will say though is that I 100% do agree about the rate of progress, and I do 100% agree in like the exponentials and technology moving that space. I think it is fair to have those conversations about what does it mean from a kind of existential perspective, but I think the more like honestly like kind of short-term direct kind of consequence here is that everyone is pushing forward on this technology. It's not just us in the US. It is the whole global ecosystem doing it. Friends and adversaries are both pushing this along, right? I think a larger threat, if you were to use that word, to national security and our position as the U.S. is us not capturing some level of that intelligence before the adversaries, and I think that's a much more direct and like palpable and like tangible fear. And so this is one of the big reasons why we're like, hey, it is very important for us to actually be part of the FedRAMP, IL5 environment, because it's yes, I mean, from a commercial perspective, there's a lot of developers and we can make money, and that's great. But it's really important for American-born like AI to be pushing the needle, and for us to take this digital fabric, which is more important than ever before, and make it more secure, modernize it, expand it faster than we could before, right? And weave in AI into that digital fabric as well. I think those axes are actually way more critical. So I think it's important to have those conversations. We should have those conversations. I'm not anti those conversations, but I do think it is also very important to just recognize the national, international implications of who gets to certain levels of intelligence faster.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Anything else that you would like to cover or talk about that I may have missed?
No, I mean, I think like there's a lot left to do. And there's, as I said, our goal is to do 99%. I think the biggest challenge I would put to developers, to companies, to the federal government especially, is this is one of those kind of technologies that is rapidly, rapidly evolving. We are shipping a new functionality that the world has never seen every 2 to 3 weeks. That is how quickly this thing is moving. And so I think the kind of, I want to say old way, but the traditional way of adopting software, which is like, we will do long RFPs. We will, have all these like checklists of this, the federal, the ATOs and all these things, right? Just to try something. And then after that, we're like, we've got something and we're good. We're done with our adoption. That kind of mentality, even as the tech gets better, even if we have all the tech, will not allow us to achieve the goals that we want to achieve. And so I think it's a little bit of a cultural shift. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I think this is like requires strong private-public relationships and partnerships and education. But we need to definitely get into that habit of always investigating what is the new cutting edge, what is possible today, and just trying it. Because there's so much of like, panels like these that we can do and we can talk about these things. It is no replacement for people getting their hands on a tool and be like, oh, this is what's possible today. And of course, our goal obviously is to be that cutting edge forever. That is the goal. But maybe we're not. And that's okay, right? If tomorrow, a year or so, there's another tool that's just way better than us for software development for AI, it is to the federal government, customers' best interest to adopt that and keep on adopting it quickly, because that is what is going to be the most important thing in this race. So maybe that's more of a mini kind of rant from my perspective.
No, I love
it. But I think that is by far the biggest challenge. It's not tech. The tech is not the challenge.
Right.
It is the kind of the culture of adopting this particular technology that is going to differentiate the people that succeed and quote unquote win, and the people that will look back 20 years from now and be like, they didn't jump on this trend fast enough, and now they're not here around.
Right.
So that's
fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the conversation.
Excellent.
Tech Snippets Today with Joseph Raczynski.